everybody, welcome back to Golf Test Dummy, the channel where I use my game to help your game, hopefully. Alright, so today we're going to ask ourselves a little question. Question 1A, do golf stats lie? By answering that question, we will also answer question 1B. Are stats worth tracking? Let's go. Alright, so, do golf stats lie? I've heard this question before. I've asked myself this question before. I don't know that I've actually seen an article about it. I don't know that I've seen a video on it, but I'm sure there's a YouTube video out there or multiple YouTube videos out there on it. Here's kind of the hypothesis that I'm working off of here. I don't think golf stats lie, but I do think that if they're taken out of context, then they can be deceptive. There you go. I've had this sticky note on my dashboard now for months and months. It shows the average scratch golfers averages. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. The average scratch golfers averages. Greens in regulation is the first stat on my little sticky note, and I got these off of the internet in case you're wondering, so they got to be true. So greens in regulation is the first on that sticky note, and it says that the average scratch golfer averages 67% of the greens in regulation. We all know there's 18 greens on a course, and 67% of that is about 12 out of 18 greens. Now 12 out of 18 greens, man, to me, to somebody like me who averages about 4 out of 18 greens, man, 12 out of 18 greens just seems a little bit out of reach at this time. I'm not saying I won't get there at some point. I fully intend to make 12 out of 18 greens seem pretty pedestrian, or at least normal for my rounds. But right now, hitting 12 out of 18 greens, that just seems like it's going to be real hard to do. So now, here's one way that greens in regulation can be deceptive. If you are, let's say, not an average scratch golfer, but an average golfer, meaning a bogey golfer, an 18 handicap, a 25 handicap, somewhere in that realm. What you're probably doing a lot of times off of the tee is hitting one out of bounds, and you're hitting 3 off of the tee. Or you get down there, you discover it's in the woods, or it's in the pond, and now you got to drop a ball. Well, by default, if you don't hit a decent tee shot and you don't leave yourself a high percentage shot into the green, or you're dropping a ball and taking penalty strokes, you're not going to hit a green in regulation. It's not going to happen on that hole. It goes hand in hand with how well you position yourself off of the tee. Here's a great question. The average scratch golfer hits 53% of their fairways. Now, what do you think they're hitting off of the tee to hit 53% of their fairways? Are they hitting driver off with all those tees? There's 14 fairways out of 18 holes on average, generally speaking, on a golf course. If they're hitting driver 14 times and they hit 53% of their fairways, that's pretty good. But how many of them are hitting 4-iron, 5-iron off of those tees? A hybrid, something like that, just to put it in play. Here's another good question for you. What if you hit 7-iron off of the tee and you hit 14 out of 14 fairways? Is that always going to serve you well to only be hitting it about 125 to 150 yards off of each tee, depending on how far you hit a 7-iron, but you know it's going to go in the fairway at least? That's probably not good. Here's another good question. If you miss the fairway with a 300-yard drive and you're 1 yard into the rough, as opposed to 200 yards off of the tee and you're dead center of the fairway, which shot's going to be better off? Well, it's hard to say because once again we need context. Is that 300-yard shot behind a tree? Is that 300-yard shot giving you a really uneven stance to where you're hanging off a cliff basically to try and get your next swing on it? Is the 200-yard one in the middle of the fairway sitting in a divot? Or is it behind a tree? There's lots of questions and lots of context that needs to be applied to every golf stat. The next golf stat on that list is the one that really got me thinking, man, because I thought I had at least one of these stats in the bag. The average scratch golfer averages 1.67 putts per hole. Now, you're thinking, okay, they're averaging well under 1 3/4 putts when you're given an allotment of basically 2 putts per hole to make par. So that sounds really good. Well, here's some context for you. I usually average about 1.53 putts per round. So I'm a great putter, right? Wrong. Yeah, 1.52 or 53 putts per round sounds great and looks great on paper. But in fact, I'd say I'm an average putter to maybe a slightly better than average putter at best. And the reason for that, once again, is context. I'm only hitting about 4 or 5 out of 18 greens per round. So I'm scrambling most of the time. At least 75% of the holes I'm scrambling, which means that instead of having a lengthy lag putt or a 10 or 12 footer that I'm going to try and drop in 1 or 2 putts, I'm chipping or pitching to get onto the green. And most of the time I'm chipping that in a spot to where I have a really good chance of making the 1 putt I'm going to have on that hole. Now, do I always 1 putt it? No, because then I'd average 1 putt per hole. If I missed every green and I chipped them all to within, say, 2 feet or 3 feet, and I 1 putted every hole, I'd have 18 putts per round, and that means 1 putt per hole. And that looks stellar on a card, but that's a lie. That would be a total lie. What if every time I was chipping for double bogey, and I left myself a 2-footer, and then I made the putt? Sounds like I'm a really good scorer, right? Wrong. Because instead of having a lengthy lag putt from, say, 25, 35 feet, I'm chipping or pitching from off the green because I missed the green in regulation, and now I've put it close enough to where sometimes I'm 1 putting, sometimes I'm 2 putting. So that stat right there, without context, is a big time liar. So, what did I learn today? Let's see. I learned that golf stats can lie if they're taken out of context. So taking them out of context really does you no good, which means that there's no point in keeping track of your stats. However, if you apply context to keeping track of your fairways hit, greens in regulation, and the number of putts per hole, then you can start to build an accurate representation of what your strengths and your weaknesses really are. And for that reason, keeping track of your stats when used in conjunction with the context that surrounds them is very much a worthwhile thing to do. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it enlightened you a little bit. I hope it gave you a little bit of perspective. Leave me some comments below and let me know, what do you think? What's your answer to the question, do stats lie? And are they worth keeping track of? Till next time, I appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time.